All right, on today's episode, changing the kickstart seal on a CRF 70. Now this may apply to pretty much any other bike as well. This one here, you can see it has a little leak. If there's one thing I really don't like, it's leaks. So, and I think a lot of people are like that. So anyways, let's get into it.
B. This.
It's hard to see, but the cross hatching is big. First thing, we're gonna need a 10mm, and we'll take this bolt completely out. So some bikes you don't have to, but a lot of bikes you do, because the bolt actually has a groove where it goes through the Kickstarter itself, and it is in that groove on the shaft of the Kickstarter gear. So even if you loosen the bolt up like this, yes, it does clamp this down, but that's also not what holds it on. You can see it's loose right now and it won't come off. It's because the bolt is actually in the groove. So take that bolt out, that'll slide right off. So that's the groove I'm talking about. And this bolt actually sits right in there, so that's why it won't come off. You have to pull it completely out. Now that we've got the Kickstarter off, we can clean it up and clean up the bolt. We can also clean up this area here a little bit, and I'll show you how to get that seal out of there without splitting the cases on this engine. Now I've got the area cleaned up there. Now here's an important thing. Brake clean. The first thing you might think is I've got an oily surface right here. I'm trying to clean it up and try to work on it. So you might think, oh, I'll use some brake clean or carb clean. And I'll tell you right now, that's actually a big mistake, because it will expand the rubber and ruin the seal. Now in this case, we're replacing the seal, so it doesn't really matter, but you have an O-ring right here on your dipstick, so it can ruin that. So I don't suggest using carb clean or brake clean anywhere you have a rubber product. It will permanently ruin it. So don't do that. I just cleaned it up with a rag. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna drill a tiny little hole right in this seal. And I'm gonna be very careful not to go too deep, because I don't wanna score anything inside of there. I don't wanna hurt the housing on the case itself. I also don't wanna nick the shaft here, because if you do one of those things, then it could permanently leak and you'll never get it sealed up. But I'm gonna drill a little hole, and I'm gonna reference the new seal so I know exactly where to drill. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick a wood screw in here. Here's the new seal. I always try to use OEM parts. So if I'm working on a Honda, it's Honda, Yamaha, whatever. I don't like to use aftermarket stuff where I can avoid it. So here's the part number for a 2007 CRF 70, and it's gonna cross-reference probably with a lot of different other ones too, but I would check with your dealer. So anyways, we're gonna look at this and see exactly where to drill, so we're really careful, and where to put that screw. On the seal here, you can turn around to the back side and you can see that spring in there, and you can kind of see where you might want to drill. Typically, you want to go as far as you can outward. There is a metal ring inside this rubber, and that'll protect it. So you want to go as far as you can out. If you go too far in, it's just rubber. You can see that right there. And if you only catch the rubber, it's not going to do anything. And you're taking a chance of scoring the shaft itself, and that'll make so it leaks forever. Anyways, you want to get it into the metal itself if you can, but not through this outside ring. Basically right where that outer line is right there, that's where you want to drill. And I'm going to find a screw first, but I'm going to drill something pretty small, probably like a 16th or maybe like 3/32 drill bit, something like that. Somewhere around that size, something really small, but I'm going to try and find a small screw also. Now another thing, before you pull this seal, you can see obviously it's holding back oil, right? And as low as it is, if you pull that seal right now, it's just gonna puke. You can do one of two things. You can either drain your oil if it needs to be changed, or you can just lay the bike on its side. Make sure your gas is off so you don't flood it out or anything. What I'm gonna do in this case, because this engine oil is new in here, I'm just gonna lay the thing on its side so that way it won't leak. Well, I ended up with this very small little wood screw here, and I think that's gonna work out perfectly. It doesn't have a pointed end on it, so drill size is important. If you can find something small that has a point on it, that'll help you a little bit, but this will work perfect. As far as the drill, it's funny because that was a total guess, but 3/32, that's the size. Little tiny guy. So want to be really careful, like I said, not to hit the case itself or the shaft. I'm gonna drill as far as I can out, but basically probably about 1/8 of an inch away from the outside here. Wear a pair of safety glasses. Just do it, okay? Your eyes are everything. You lose an eye, I mean, that's life altering. My older brother actually snapped a drill bit off one time, and it was a bigger one, about a 1/4 inch drill bit. It snapped off and it flew back and it hit him in the mouth. It actually broke out a tooth. So anyways, you don't want that. If that hit you in the eye, you could definitely lose an eye. If it's strong enough to knock out a tooth, you take your eye out. So take your eye out, kid. Anyways, yeah, so I'm gonna drill a tiny little hole here and then we can get the screw in there. Now I've got a small hole drilled there. It's kind of hard to see, but it kept wanting to walk to the outside, which would mess up the case. So obviously I went very, very slow and very carefully, and that way I didn't hit either the shaft or the case. If you're not confident in doing something like this, just don't do it. Take it to somebody, have them do it. You could very easily, by the way, take this cover off and just take it out that way, but it's super quick and easy if you know what you're doing to do it this way. So anyways, I was really, really careful, and just go slow. You have time. Now that's ready to go. And I'll get my screw put in there. All right, so I've got my screw installed. Now basically what I'm gonna do is just take a pair of dikes. Some people call them side cutters. I don't know why, I've never heard that name until recently. Anyways, there you go, look at that. How easy was that? That's how it's done. So, like I said, very, very careful not to hurt the shaft or the housing. Got it out nice and clean. Now I can put the new one in. On the new one, you don't need to silicone these or do anything else. Just clean the hole. It goes in dry, okay? The factory didn't silicone them. Why would you? I'm gonna clean this up a little bit. We'll stick this down on there. Now the side with the spring in it, right there, you can see that spring. Okay, that goes down. You're trying to hold the oil in. If you put that spring out, it could possibly leak. So anyways, just like that. So I'll clean that up. We can stick this down on there. All right, we've got it cleaned up, ready to rock and roll. Make sure we put the seal on the correct way. You wanna be careful. The way I do this is I put one side on at a time and I push to the side to get the other side over it. That way the seal doesn't fold over. You don't want this to fold over to the inside, and then it'll definitely ruin the seal and leak. So like I say, I just put it on one side, push to the one side, and then gently slide it over the other side, okay? And then what you can do is once you get down on there, do the same thing. Right now, I am where that groove is, so I'll do the same thing. Just push down there, get it past. And once it's on, you can actually come back like this a little bit, and that'll help if it is folded in, it'll help fold it back. A little twisting motion doesn't hurt. So I'll pull it back, just make sure nothing's folded over. Okay, and we got it in there, just like that. Now what I'll use to drive it in is an 18mm socket. This is a Craftsman, 18mm 12-sided. It's about the right size. And I'm gonna need both my hands. I'm gonna have to shut the camera off, but I use a brass hammer, and the reason I use a brass hammer is because I don't like to jack up my tools and mushroom out the end of a perfectly good socket. That's it. I'll just tap it in nice and gentle now, and basically I'm gonna make the seal flush with the surface of the case, and then I can put the shifter back on. All right, now we're ready to put the shifter on. Got it cleaned up. There's no rubber parts on this, so I just cleaned it out, blew it off some air. It doesn't require anything special, so just slide it on there. Then you can get the bolt in. So put the bolt in. Should just go right in if you're lined up with that groove. Now, there is torque specs for this stuff, but here's the deal. If you just use your head, that's a little bolt. you can snap it off very easily. Don't over tighten it, it's not a big deal. So you want to go tight enough to make so it doesn't fall off on you, but not so tight that you break the bolt off. Then you're trying to remove a bolt out of this thing, which actually wouldn't be that difficult, but sometimes, you know, say you break a bolt off in the case of an engine, now you have a real big problem. So, but anyways, broken bolts are a big problem for most people. Anyways, I'm just going good and tight, but nothing crazy. I mean, I can break this off by looking at it funny. So that's it. That's ready to go. Now, it's fixed. No more leaks. I can pressure wash this thing up and clean it up, and looks like it may be leaking a tiny bit from the O-ring on the dipstick too, so I'll get a new one of those coming. But there you go. Starter shaft seal, done. Only took about 5 minutes. Hopefully I earned your guys' subscription, and hopefully you guys like this video, and give me a follow for more tips and tricks like this, welding, fabrication, racing stuff, you name it, we do it.